What's up, friends? This is Manni and welcome to the new 9.4 buffed Ao Jun with the increased built-in Flamethrower damage that, for example, allows you to one-clip an entire Newton Titan as we do right here. And later in this video I'll also show you why the entire concept behind the Ao Jun and as such the Ao Jun itself isn't really working anymore. It's okay, and the flamethrowers have always done a lot of damage on the Ao Jun. Now, how much is going to be a brisant shotgun, how much is going to be flamethrower, we're going to see that here. And also talk a little bit about the Ao Jun in general, because it used to be the top-end meta bot in its time, and then it has received several nerfs, and now it is only basically a shell of its former self. And it is still not a terrible robot, but the stealth time is really awful nowadays. Usually, and that is what it was back in the meta time, similar to the Ophion right now, you pressed the ability to fly, and the Ophion right now, you press the ability, you get instant shield, and the shield lasts until you fly and land and touch back to the ground. So you have a very long flight time, you have high flight speed, you have the shield lasting through the entire airborne time on the Ophion. And this is exactly what we had with the Ao Jun. And then once the critical mass of players has spent their money on the Ao Jun, Pixonic did the Pixonic move and, well, basically took half of the robot away. So your 6-cylinder now runs on 3 cylinders. Pixonic, awesome job. I love it. We all love it when you do these kind of things. And now we're going to show you the 3-cylinder version of the Ao Jun. However, it has been at least buffed in terms of flamethrower back a little bit. So the flamethrower itself is really a dangerous weapon. If you have a big, slow target such as a Titan, that flamethrower is going to do a real big number on him. And of course, the combination with the brisant shotguns makes this thing actually work in today's meta, because you have the firepower in a stationary mode with these 2 heavy weapons, and you have the necessary firepower when you fly up and do some crazy stuff with your flight ability. Now, from what was usually... Remember, let's just take a look at the difference in stealth duration compared to its meta time and now. I think now we fly, for example, 6 seconds long or so with the stealth up in the air. We fly up for 2, we land for 2, and we have 6 seconds in between. Something like this. Maybe 7. I don't know exactly. But so usually, before, I remember the Ao Jun had a longer stealth flight too. So instead of 6 seconds, you had 8 seconds of complete flying. And you got the stealth at start and landing. So you had 8 seconds stealth, plus 2 in the beginning, plus 2 in the landing. That was like 12 seconds of altogether stealth time. Together with a much increased flight speed, allowed this Ao Jun back in its old time to reach pretty much halfway through the map just with 1 flight and take out 2 or 3 people along the way. Yeah, that was the meta of the Ao Jun. That was when everybody wanted to have the Ao Jun back in the days. Same as it is nowadays with the Orochi, or shortly before with the Ophion, which, by the way, still same as relevant. It lost a bit of speed during the flight now. That was its phase 1 of the nerf. Nerfing the flight speed a little bit, right? It's still great. And next, phase 2 of the Ophion nerf will come around sometime soon. And we'll see more nerf happening to it, I'm sure. Yeah, that's just how it is. Let's go and attack this Titan here. Of course, he's got his reflector. But there comes a Rook. And the Rook is what we're going to attack next, alright? Oh man, I almost just killed myself just firing at that Harpy in the air with his reflector running. Not a good idea, especially when you're doing a lot of damage with the built-in flamethrowers to throw back a lot of damage at yourself. Flight is almost ready. The cooldowns are pretty long, man. Seriously, what a long cooldown for such a short stealth flight. But here comes the Rook. I'm positioning myself so that he can't jump on me, which of course he's going to try, and he did. Behind us is some action. Alright, let's start to fly up and go did some damage to the Rook. We can't really deal damage with the shotguns, with the brisant weapon, so all the damage you see here was from the flamethrower. So it's a good 20% or so that we did in this short flight time, just using the flamethrower. That's pretty impressive, I would say. The 15% additional damage are noticeable here on this thing. But remember, this was all back in the days too. Now again, let's look at the Orochi. Let's fight some Orochis and see what we can do against those. With the brisant shotgun here, after his ability, we can do some decent damage to him. And he is already pretty much down. That was quick, probably because we had so many players shooting him at the same time. But here's the thing that really annoys me about these things. It's this pushing around, right? This continuous bully pushing that these Orokochis do, which to me seems like it's an added built-in psychological factor of dominance over you. You don't have an Orokochi? Well, sorry my friend, you're nothing but a little tiny ant that just gets bullied and pushed around at will. And this is something where I have to ask Pixonic, is this added psychological element really necessary? Is it not enough that the robot is literally invincible 90% of the entire playtime and gets to spawn raid entire teams indefinitely, and instead of eventually getting killed, no, gets stronger in the process of it when you use the right battleship with it, and just do this forever? Is that not enough in a multiplayer gameplay environment where a player fights a real player and one player literally just gets to eliminate the other dude by pressing a button because he got that robot? Is that not enough? Do you really have to build in an added psychological effect and component that gets you to push and bully the enemy around like he means absolutely nothing in the game? Like he's the most useless piece of crap that ever existed because he doesn't have an Orokochi? Would it not be enough if the robot would just give you one pushback at the end of its ability, or at the beginning, or somewhere in between? This continuous bully pushing, we already learned from the Rook Titan how insanely annoying this is. And now you're bringing it again, which leads me to believe this is an intended psychological added factor of absolute dominance over the non-playing or less paying players who do not have the luxury of running the Rolls-Royce Orokochi in your game. Now here's the connection to the Ao Jun, and why I'm bringing this up in this video is we have a lot of flying robots in the game. And this pushback from the Orokochi, even also from the Rook, the radius is far too large. Even flying up, you're affected by it, and you get shot into a different dimension, into the sky's highest position where you can no longer shoot or attack the player down there. You basically, it just, sometimes it gives you advantages where you get shot into the enemy base, you can capture their beacons. But the point is, the radius of that pushback is too large. The intensity, power of the knockback is too powerful. And the frequency, how many pushbacks are happening, is too powerful. Why does there seem to be so little interest in making abilities work and function with the rest of the concept of the game? For example, taking into account, if somebody had asked themselves, okay, what does this ability do to our flying robots, which there is so many of them. At some point we could call this flying war robots instead of walking war robots, because there have been so many of them, and they're all so negatively affected by that, and I just don't understand why this doesn't seem to be considered when bringing a new ability. You know, the robot itself already breaks the game in a way we've never seen before. So much even that I simply boycott the entire thing and say this robot will not be featured until it gets its much deserved nerf. You know, that's one thing. But that the ability also basically destroys the entire functionality of the game, or, well, at least in many aspects with robot abilities, shooting them and bouncing them all over the map and stuff, you can tell this isn't really working, you know, and you know that, Pixonic, too. But anyways, let's leave it as that. I'm done complaining about the Orochi. I could probably fill many videos with that topic. But I guess there's no point to it, because it's intended, it's working as intended, and if it breaks the game in the way it does, then this is what it's supposed to be doing. I just remember when they brought the new Brisant shotguns into the game, and they were somehow too weak. It took them less than 24 hours to hotfix insta-buff them by 400% immediately, because, oh my god, it can't be that potential profit gets lost by a new weapon that comes into the game and accidentally not game-breaking. Bam! Instantly fixed within 24 hours. But then we have the unintended hitbox problems that the Angler had, or the unknown Seraph, where like 80% of your firepower passes right through the hitbox of the robot. It takes 3 months to fix that problem. Yo, of course, guys, we all know what's going on here. It's actually even a little bit funny. It's like there's 1st of April every day for Pixonic. Anyways, let's hop into the next match here on Moon. Moon is a map very well suited for flying robots. Also scorpions, by the way. They love teleporting at players from behind walls. One thing I like about the Ao Jun, still with a legendary pilot, is that you can quantum sensor or built-in quantum radar flying robots, such as the Emugis. But of course, the duration is just not enough because the flight is just too short. So just to show an example of how many problems go along with shortening that cooldown, in how many ways you get screwed. Not just do you have less stealth and less survivability, you get shot down as you try to ascend because your stealth isn't yet active, so you have your ability ready and yet you still die. And then on top of that, the duration on your legendary pilot is also weaker because now the quantum radar doesn't last long enough to actually kill an Emugi in the air, for example, right? So yeah, there are a lot of robots that could really use some love by Pixonic. Not restoring their meta prime time anymore. You know, that's not what I'm asking, but restoring at least their functionality, the idea behind the robot. And the idea behind this robot was a fire-breathing dragon. It flies up into the air and it hits you with flames from above. So let me show you how the reality looks like at the end of 2023. We're flying up, lost the target for 2 seconds because he's underneath me. I'm aiming back at him. The flamethrower doesn't even begin to fire because he's moving around a little. And then the ridiculously short stealth flight is already over and I make like a little smoke cloud come out at the end. Oh man, this is so ridiculous. And that's why I'm saying the whole concept of the robot is not even working anymore. Giving it a 15% flamethrower buff is completely useless almost when you consider that these short 6 seconds is the time in which the flamethrower just considers firing, and it doesn't reliably do so. Let's take a look at here. I'm flying up, now I begin to flamethrower and I'm stopping for some reason. In the middle, the flamethrower just decides to stop firing. Was it because he was phase shifting? It shouldn't matter. And then we switch the target over and again one little smoke cloud comes out of the end. After switching to a target, there's a delay between the flamethrower resuming to fire. Then the flames travel so slow that moving targets from above are almost not really hittable. So where's the entire idea behind the flaming dragon, the flying, fire-breathing dragon? It's not there anymore. And that's really sad. And so yeah, the 15% flamethrower buff, I don't know what they're thinking. There needs to be a serious increase of flight time on the Ao Jun, a serious increase. The flamethrower should have faster traveling flames so that you can actually hit something with it. And of course, it should resume fire immediately. It should continuously breathe fire as soon as the target is somewhere in sight. And it doesn't do that. Unfortunately. It should be like the Ophion, for example, works. The Ophion little shots that you do while you're flying, they work. As soon as something is in target, you will fire at your crosshair. And it's very reliable and it works perfectly. That flamethrower has never really worked all the way perfectly, and I guess probably it's too late and there's probably no interest in reworking that and putting some manpower in to restore this, or basically make this thing even functional to begin with. And that's why the thumbnail says nope on it, because it's definitely not a yes. Yeah, so I always like when older stuff gets some buffs, but I also look at them and I often have to understand that it's not a buff, because with no stealth, with no flamethrower firing time, what's the buff going to do for you, right? So yeah, there needs to be some other things, and I thought maybe it's a good idea to mention that and see if perhaps there is a chance for some older things to get some actual change to be seen again on the battlefield. It would be cool. But yeah, it's probably me just dreaming, like as usual. So you see what these brisant shotguns do to the Capri from down below. The flamethrower could maybe do a little bit similar damage, but only if it was stationary hitting the target, you know, then, and that's unfortunately not often the case. Here you see another example of a robot that has gotten terribly nerfed, the Seraph. It still flies around relatively fast, it still shoots its lasers, but during the air time you can now shoot it down, so what was previously invincibility almost is now basically just a bit of resistance. That doesn't work very well anymore. And I believe, I'm not sure, but I think I still sometimes see the lasers from Seraph coming through the wall and hitting me around the wall. Is that still the case? Because it seems like it has been there all the time, and I also believe there have been some attempts made by Pixonic to try and address this, but I feel like I always still see it, even today, right? Tell me if I'm wrong though. Tell me if you do see that happening still. In any case, I hope you still had a good time with this video. Of course, there's a lot of things to be criticized, and especially when Orochi appears on screen, I have a hard time not, you know, screaming at the top of my lungs. But yeah, it's gonna be a phase, and then it's gonna be over, and something else is gonna replace it, and we have to somehow bear through the unbearable time with the Orochi, because this somehow is War Robots. Cool. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Catch you in the next one. Manni signing off. Bye-bye.